Dear listeners, I ask you to listen to the story until the very end and be sure to write a review about what you liked and what needs to be changed to make it more interesting for you to listen to my stories.
Someone under the bed. The neon sign of the roadside motel flickered, buzzing like a dying insect, casting a sickly red glow over the rain-slicked asphalt. I didn't care about the peeling paint on the door or the way the air smelled like stale cigarettes and mildew. It was cheap, it was available, and after driving for nearly 10 hours, my body felt like it had been run over by a semi. The receptionist, a guy in his 50s with greasy hair and a wrinkled button-up, barely looked up as he slid the key across the counter. Room 7. No breakfast, no noise after midnight. And don't mind the smell, pipes backed up last week. He let out a wet cough and turned back to the small TV behind him, dismissing me like an afterthought. The room was worse than I expected. The carpet had dark stains I didn't want to investigate, the wallpaper peeled in strips like old sunburned skin, and the fluorescent light above the sink flickered erratically, casting strange, shifting shadows across the ceiling. But the bed, God, the bed looked soft, and in that moment, I didn't care about anything else. I kicked off my shoes, tossed my bag onto the armchair in the corner, and collapsed onto the mattress with a heavy sigh. That's when I noticed it, the smell. It wasn't just mildew. It was something thicker, something that clung to the back of my throat like a damp rag. Rotten. Like old meat left too long in the sun. I sat up, sniffing the air, trying to pinpoint where it was coming from. The sink? The closet? I got up, checked the tiny bathroom, lifted the lid of the toilet, even pulled the shower curtain aside, half expecting to find a dead rat in the tub. Nothing. Maybe the receptionist was right, bad pipes. Or maybe something had crawled into the vents and died. Either way, I wasn't about to start playing detective. I was exhausted. I turned off the light, stretched out on the bed, and closed my eyes. The mattress sagged under my weight, and for a brief moment, I felt a strange pressure against my back, like something shifting beneath me. A lump, maybe a broken spring? I adjusted, rolling onto my side, and ignored the way the air seemed thicker now, pressing down on me. My breath slowed, my body sank deeper into the mattress, and soon, exhaustion pulled me under. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but the room was pitch black, and I had that awful, disoriented feeling of being ripped out of a nightmare. My heart was pounding, my throat dry. I lay there, staring into the darkness, trying to remember what had jolted me awake. And then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. It was slow, raspy, coming from somewhere low. I held my breath, listening. A wheezing inhale. A ragged exhale. I turned my head toward the window. Was it coming from outside? No. The sound was closer. It was inside the room. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering against my ribs. The smell was stronger now, thick and putrid, like rotting flesh. My fingers clenched the sheets, my muscles locked in place. The breathing continued, slow and deliberate, just beneath me. Under the bed. I didn't move. I didn't blink. My mind was screaming, telling me to run, to get the hell out, but my body refused to obey. Instead, I shifted just enough to tilt my head, peering into the blackness at the edge of the bed. My breath caught in my throat. A hand. Pale, filthy, fingers long and stiff, the nails cracked and blackened. It twitched slightly, then slid back into the darkness, vanishing beneath the mattress. I lost it. I flung myself off the bed, hitting the floor hard, scrambling for the light switch. My hands were shaking so badly I missed it twice before slamming my palm against it. The room lit up in a harsh, flickering glow. Nothing. The bed was still. The room was empty. The only sound was my own ragged breathing. But I knew what I saw. I grabbed my bag, yanked open the door, and bolted out into the cold night air, my bare feet slapping against the wet pavement. The receptionist jerked upright in his chair, startled, eyes wide with confusion as I stumbled into the office. "Hey, what the hell?" "Someone's in my room," I gasped. "Under the bed." There's someone under the bed." He stared at me, face blank for a second, then let out a long sigh. Damn it. Again? That was the last thing I expected him to say. The room felt heavier now, as if the air itself had thickened, pressing against my skin with an unseen weight. I turned onto my side, hugging my knees slightly, trying to ignore the gnawing sensation in my gut. Maybe it was just exhaustion, or maybe my brain was playing tricks on me after the long drive, the shitty gas station coffee, the unsettling motel decor. Yeah, that had to be it. My body was screaming for rest, and my nerves were on edge from being alone in an unfamiliar place. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to relax, letting my muscles loosen, ignoring the way my fingers still clenched at the thin sheet as if it could protect me from something. The silence felt louder now, like it was straining against itself, like it was waiting to be broken. I closed my eyes, focusing on my breathing, slow and deep, willing myself to sink into sleep. At first, it worked. My mind drifted, my body finally giving in, but just as I began slipping under, a sound shattered the stillness. A breath. Not mine. Not the distant hum of the vending machine outside. A deep, strained inhale, dragging through the air like something old and heavy, something that didn't belong here. My body went rigid, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard I could hear it in my ears. I held my breath, my ears straining, waiting. Silence. Just my own pulse, the occasional distant creak of the building settling. I told myself it had been a dream, the edge of sleep twisting reality, my paranoia distorting the normal sounds of the night. And then I heard it again. Closer. A long, rattling exhale, as if whatever was making it had lungs filled with dust and regret, as if breathing was an effort, a struggle, a punishment. My fingers dug into the mattress, my body locked in place, my mind screaming at me to move, to run, to do anything but lie there waiting. But I couldn't. I didn't want to. Because deep down, I knew exactly where the sound was coming from. Underneath me. Under the bed. A nightmare solidifying into something real, something undeniable. I could feel the cold seeping through the mattress, the slow, deliberate rhythm of the breathing directly beneath me. My stomach twisted into knots, my throat tightened, my entire body screamed with the kind of fear that goes beyond logic, beyond reason, beyond anything that can be dismissed. This wasn't my imagination. This wasn't a trick of exhaustion. Someone was there. The breath hitched, stopping for a moment, as if it knew I was listening. As if it was listening to me. I needed to move. I needed to get out. But every muscle in my body was locked in place, every nerve braced for whatever was about to happen next. And then, as if to confirm my worst fear, the sound of something shifting, something dragging against the carpet, slow and deliberate, sent a jolt of sheer terror straight through my spine. I clenched my teeth, trying to breathe as silently as possible, my pulse hammering in my ears so loudly I thought it might give me away. And then I did the worst thing possible. I looked. Slowly, carefully, barely daring to breathe, I tilted my head, peering over the edge of the bed, down into the shadows beneath. And what I saw made my blood run cold. A hand. Not just any hand, thin, almost skeletal, its skin stretched too tightly over the bones, fingers long and wrong, the nails cracked and yellowed. It was retreating, slithering back into the darkness, as if it knew I had seen it, as if it was toying with me, savoring the moment. My breath caught in my throat, my vision tunneling as panic took full control. I didn't think. I just moved. Throwing myself off the bed, I scrambled toward the door, my bare feet barely registering the rough carpet as I fumbled for the lock. My fingers were shaking so badly it took 2 tries to yank the door open, and then I was out, stumbling into the dimly lit hallway, sucking in air like I had been drowning. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, the cold night air spilling in from the parking lot, but I didn't care. I just needed to get away from that room, from whatever was under that bed, from whatever had been breathing beneath me. I turned, my breath ragged, my pulse still out of control, and that's when I saw him. The night manager. A middle-aged man with thinning hair and tired eyes, standing behind the front desk with the kind of expression that said he had seen far worse things than a panicked girl running out of a motel room in the middle of the night. He didn't even look surprised. Just resigned. "There's something," my voice cracked, my lungs still burning, my hands still trembling. "There's something under the bed." For a moment, he just stared at me, then let out a long sigh, rubbing a hand over his face like he had been through this before. Like he already knew. "Which room?" His voice was flat. Tired. I swallowed hard. 12. His shoulders tensed. His expression darkened. But he didn't hesitate. Reaching beneath the desk, he pulled out a key and motioned for me to follow. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get in my car and never look back, but I needed to know. I needed proof that I hadn't imagined it, that I wasn't losing my mind. So, against every ounce of self-preservation I had left, I followed him. The hallway felt longer this time, the doors stretching away into infinity, the buzzing of the old lights drilling into my skull. When we reached my room, the door still hung open, the warm glow of the bedside lamp spilling into the hallway. Everything looked exactly the same, except for the heavy stillness, the way the air felt wrong, heavy, thick with something unseen. The manager stepped inside first, moving with the kind of caution that only comes from experience, from knowing exactly what you're about to find. He didn't ask me if I was sure. He didn't check the closet, the bathroom, the corners. He went straight for the bed. And with one swift motion, he lifted the mattress. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. A body. Crammed into the narrow space beneath the bed, twisted at an unnatural angle, limbs bent the wrong way, skin pale and lifeless. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the face. Mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide and empty, staring up at the mattress that had been covering it. And on its neck, dark, fresh, deep bruises shaped like long, bony fingers. I staggered backward, bile rising in my throat, my vision swimming. But the manager didn't flinch. He just let out another sigh, shaking his head, muttering something under his breath that I didn't catch. Then, slowly, he turned to me, his expression unreadable. "How long was it breathing?" The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest, knocking the air straight out of my lungs. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out, just a hollow, rasping breath, my vocal cords strangled by the weight of realization. How long? How long had it been there, lying just inches beneath me, filling the room with that slow, rattling breath, its presence hidden only by a thin layer of cheap motel fabric? The image burned itself into my brain, the vacant eyes, the stiff, contorted limbs, the bruised throat that looked like it had been gripped by something that didn't belong in the realm of the living. A dead body should be silent. A corpse should not breathe. And yet, I had heard it. Felt it. My stomach twisted violently, a deep, primal nausea clawing its way up my throat, but I forced it down, swallowing hard, gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. The night manager didn't move. He stood there with the same tired, resigned expression, like he had seen this before, like this was just another part of the job. The way he had sighed, the way he had asked me that question without a trace of shock or disbelief, it all clicked into place like a puzzle I wished I hadn't started. This wasn't the first time. I forced my body to move, one slow, shaky step into the room, my gaze locked onto the corpse. The air was thick with something stale, something rotting beneath the artificial scent of motel cleaning chemicals. My mind screamed at me to turn around, to leave, to never set foot in this cursed building again, but I needed answers. If I ran now, I would spend the rest of my life hearing that breath in the dark, feeling that presence just beneath me, wondering if it had ever really left. My voice came out hoarse, barely more than a whisper. "What the hell is this?" The manager let out another slow breath, then crouched down beside the bed, gripping the edge of the mattress like he had done this 100 times before. His fingers curled slightly, the tips pressing into the fabric, but he didn't lift it any further. Instead, he studied the body, not with the horror it deserved, but with something colder, more analytical. "Last time," he muttered, half to himself, half to the empty air. It was room 8. A chill slithered down my spine, wrapping tight around my ribs. What? He finally looked up at me, his expression unreadable but his eyes sharp, tired but knowing. This happens. A pause, a slow blink, then he added, not often, but it happens. Something inside me cracked. Are you serious? My voice was sharper now, anger and fear mixing into something volatile, something barely controlled. People keep dying under these beds, and I gestured wildly toward the body, the horror of it all threatening to consume me. You just accept it. He didn't flinch. You think I got a choice? For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The quiet felt thicker than before, heavier, pressing in on my skin like something tangible. I could still hear it, the memory of that breath, rattling in the silence, seeping into my bones like a sickness I would never shake. I wanted to believe this was some sick joke, a nightmare, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion, but the dead eyes staring up at me from beneath the bed were real. The bruises were real. The way the body's mouth hung open, frozen in a silent scream, was real. My voice was quieter now, but no less sharp. What happens now? The manager stood up, rolling his shoulders like a man burdened with a weight too heavy to put down. I clean up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by the collar and shake him until he admitted that this was insane, that this was a goddamn crime scene, that we needed to call the police and burn this whole godforsaken motel to the ground. But when I opened my mouth, the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, beneath all the fear, beneath the terror still clawing at my lungs, I understood something that made me wish I had never checked in. This wasn't just murder. It wasn't just a crime scene. Something had breathed beneath me. Something had moved. And that meant the thing that had done this, whatever had strangled that poor bastard under the bed, was still here. Watching. Waiting. And it had let me go. For now. I swallowed hard, forcing my breath to steady even as my pulse pounded wildly beneath my skin. The motel room felt smaller now, the air heavier, like the walls had inched closer the moment I realized the truth. My mind screamed for me to leave, to run as far and as fast as my legs could carry me, but my body refused to obey, rooted in place by something deeper than fear. It was the way the manager stood there, calm and resigned, the way he spoke about this like it was just another late-night inconvenience, like he had dealt with this before and would deal with it again. What if I call the cops? My voice felt weak, a whisper swallowed by the thick silence pressing in from all sides. The manager sighed, rubbing a hand over his face, his fingers lingering at his temples like he was bracing for a headache. You think they don't know? He let out a dry, humorless chuckle. They come. They take a look. They leave. His gaze flickered toward the corpse, his expression darkening just enough to betray something close to real fear. They know better than to stay too long. I hated the way his words settled into my gut, thick and heavy like oil coating my insides. There was no panic in his voice, no desperation, just cold, brutal acceptance. I wanted to fight it, to reject it, but the weight of it pressed down on me, undeniable, unshakable. This wasn't just a bad motel in the middle of nowhere. This was something else. Something wrong. The corpse had breathed. And the thing that had done this, whatever had been under the bed with me, was still here. I forced myself to move, one slow step back toward the door, every instinct screaming at me not to turn my back. The manager didn't try to stop me, didn't say a word as I reached the threshold, my hand trembling as I gripped the doorknob. If I leave, I said, barely recognizing my own voice, will it come after me? His silence was answer enough. I stepped out into the night, the motel's flickering neon sign casting jagged shadows across the cracked pavement. The air was thick with humidity, but it did nothing to shake the cold seeping into my bones. I could still feel it, the presence in that room, the thing that had been there with me, watching, waiting. I turned back once, just for a second, my gaze locking onto the window of my former room. The curtains had been open when I left. Now they were drawn shut. A slow, deliberate movement, as if something inside had reached up and pulled them closed. I left without another word, without another breath wasted on questions I didn't want answered. The road stretched out before me, dark and endless, and I drove faster than I ever had before, my hands locked in a white-knuckled grip around the wheel. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't dare. Because some things, once seen, never really leave you. And I knew, deep in the marrow of my bones, that the thing under the bed had let me go. But not because it couldn't follow. Because it wanted me to remember,